Let's get to the NFL. They have reached that settlement with retired players on concussions. The league's going to pay out $750 million, paying off 4,500 retired players suffering from some sort of concussion-related problems. It sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but it averages to $170,000 per player. Let's bring in sports agent Doug Eldridge, joining us from Baltimore. All right, Doug. It sounds like a lot of money, but I've got an awful lot of people saying these players have gotten hosed, and you represent players. Here's the number that I'm hearing.
Yes.
Between now and I think it's 2022, the TV networks will pay the NFL $28 billion, and you only got $170,000 per player. Sounds like these guys got hosed. What do you say?
If hose is the technical term, I think we need to look at it first and foremost from a numbers standpoint. We're talking about a league that does roughly $9.5 billion of revenue per year, number one. Number two, 2/3 of the 32 teams in the league are worth a minimum of $1 billion, with the Cowboys being the number one at roughly $3 billion of value. So if we were to simply do the pen and pencil math, we're talking about less than 10% of annual revenue for the total payout of this settlement. In that context, it's probably less than you would pay a waiter or waitress for a lunchtime business meeting.
Okay. Well, don't you represent the players? You do, don't you?
We do. I mean,
well,
now I say that from the outset, because when you you have to look at the needs. Number one, if this were a punitive measure, then the answer would be no, because the proverbial pound of flesh would have lended more toward the $2 billion that some pundits were saying were on the table had this gone deeper in litigation and had we actually gotten into the discovery process, which at that point you would have revealed the presumptive fraud and concealment, the likes of which the players alleged. But that requires time, years, and a lot of additional funding to get there. The NFL, comparatively speaking, has a massive litigation war chest. By contrast, you have players that are really suffering right now. So when you look at this deal, it's front-loaded, so $382 million are paid out in the first 3 years. And there are a lot of guys that have been living, former players, that have been living hand-to-mouth, trying to make medical bills, et cetera. So if we're being honest, no, it's not a lot of money. We get jaded with this monopoly money level of $10 and $20 million and $1 billion.
Here's one of the problems that I have. You've got a union of current players who really seem like they don't care at all for the former players. Now, if the current players had stepped up to the plate and taken care of these guys that you're talking about, then everyone could have made a lot more money. But it's the current players and perhaps their overwhelming greed and not caring about the guys who laid the groundwork for them, because that's been the real issue all the time. Current guys not wanting to help guys who are already retired overcome this hurdle. You guys got suckered in, and you were divided and conquered by the NFL.
Well, I think on some level you certainly make a valid point, but I know from some of the players that we work with that it was a complicated concern, in that at the time, you have to remember, they were fighting for their own collective bargaining agreement, the likes of which governs their grievances and their injury payment system, et cetera. These retired players are not covered by the CBA. So in that sense, because of the way the collective bargaining agreement is written, these retired players, Charles, were essentially forced to fight for themselves. It's not that the current players don't have an interest. It's not that they don't have an appreciation for their predecessors and those that, as you put it, laid the groundwork so accurately. It was the fact that their hands, to some degree, were tied by virtue of the contentious CBA negotiation at the time. Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say it was a blatant disregard for those that came before them, just limited ability to help. So
the deal is done, and the season begins this weekend. I think that's right, isn't it? The season begins this weekend. Thursday,
next couple days.
Okay, and it's a very profitable league. Look, Doug Eldridge, thanks very much for being with us and helping us cover this story. It's a very difficult one to cover. Doug, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
It's very complex.
It is.